Stay tuned.
It's going to be a multiple beer kind of a Sunday. Yeah. I think we're almost done. I've said that before. Holy smokes, she moved, she rolled. Oh man, she'll need some brakes. What I was concerned about is that these gears weren't meshing here, or when I pushed this on, that this hadn't effectively engaged, because I couldn't feel the tension of this rolling on the ball bearings. Yeah, kind of like it had spun, something like that. So I want to see the actuation. The only way I can see that now that I've checked this, to put this cover back on to get the pressure here and try moving through those gears again. You see that rolling through there? That feels right. Oh, owie. Oh, okay, fastest clutch inspection I've ever done. Any guesses on if anybody thinks I was right? It's gonna smoke up a storm when it gets warm. Oh boy, this could be a lousy troubleshoot. There really is no other way that the transmission can go back together. It goes back together or it doesn't. The whole inner part of the motor. Part I can't vouch for is getting the rear end attached effectively. And I say that because I'm starting to wonder if down in the boot here, didn't actually get that drive shaft connected. We're going for it. We're going for it. Okay, I can see looking at the U-joint, it's all lined up appropriate as it should be. That's not where the problem lies. See if any of the high-low reverse engages. Won't start in reverse, makes me think it's making it in there. Reverse indicator light works. I wonder if I have cam shifter forks in some kind of wrong configuration. So last night we got the CDI computer, we plugged it in, everything started right up. Very exciting moment until it never left neutral. Yeah. So this morning I took a look at the from the clutch side, the star gear on the end of the shift drum assembly to make sure that the shifting linkage was all linking up appropriately, and it is. So I'm starting to wonder if there was a way that I can put that drum in incorrectly in the motor, which would imply I gotta split the case again. Oh. So here's where we're at. So I've pulled off the clutch, assembly side of the case, take the oil tube, get the oil tube loose, drop your peg, and you can tip this up out of the way. And this is what I was interested in here. So your shift shaft comes through here, and there's a mechanism that sits on this star gear. Notice one of the ears of this star is missing, right? And that would signify something, and I believe that signifies where you're at the bottom of the gear range. And probably each of these signifies one of the gears. I'm making a guess here, I don't know. Now, without the shift linkage in here, I'm replicating what would happen if I was toe shifting from the other side. Which is to say, when the toe shifter rotates up, well, when you click up into first gear on this side, you effectively spin this kind of counterclockwise to it. What I should have just done is put it in first gear, but you see it didn't fall. I'll go back to where I believe, or where the bike believes neutral to be, sitting in here, and I can't go anywhere from there, which is to say that on the other side, where the lifter forks are set, there's nowhere to move. So shift shaft coming in through here, we execute a shift into first, which goes that far. Doesn't fall all the way into first. And that is as far as I can spin in either direction. There's actually neutral, bike will start there. So to validate this, rock the bike. If I were in gear and turn the tires, the whole shaft would shift a little bit. Feels like neutral. Can't get into a gear. Guys, I think I gotta pull the case, split it again, and take a look at my lifter forks, unfortunately. That is the maximum amount of work to do to get back to there. Fortunately, I've done it once before, but this case is a pain to split and put back together. And everything is back together. I'm pretty sure at that point, seeing that that star is not shifting fully into place, hitting a hard stop, I think one of the nipples on the other side that go into the shift drum, it's in the wrong spot. So the good news is recognizing this and having learned this now, when I get it together, I believe I should be able to roll it through all the gears, have a good test before I put it back together. I just didn't know that before I got this far. So unfortunate. That is a lot of disassembly to do. It's going to be a multiple beer kind of a Sunday. Yeah. All right, let's get to it. All right, guys, we're getting close. I think that's taken me about an hour and a half to get back to where I was a few weeks ago. So we got to take off the side of the worm gear. We're gonna split the case, and then we're getting to the bottom of this. All right, guys, we just did a full case split again to get here to inspect the transmission, lifters, all of that. So what now? Everything spins fine, all neutral like. This, guys, where I believe the crux of my problem is. What a mess to get to this point. So, back to my belief this morning. Neutral. Transmission gears spin, but nothing is raised and engaged. I'm going to walk you through what I'm going to do here. I'm on this side. I'm going to shift these gears. I'm going to rotate. Look at that. We're stuck again. Let's see why we're stuck. That is like what we saw earlier this morning. Oh. Transmission getting stuck. All three of the nipples are in the shifter drum fine. I want to pay attention to this guy right there. I don't know what that little lip is for. Boy, to figure out this transmission, I'm going to rebuild the clutch side here so I can see everything in motion as I want to. I'm noticing something. There's an arrow on this clutch basket cover. I don't know where that arrow could align to. There's multiple detents. They're not different unless I'm going to go directly between the two detents. Here's what I think, guys. Let's see, so that's neutral, right? And let's just go into a gear. First gear. And you couldn't see it from this side, but I've been able to watch it and see you're lifting the gears, etc. in the transmission. Here's where it gets interesting. Notice my clutch plates, no pressure. See if I can hold the camera at enough of an angle for you to be able to see this. So turning forward, crankshaft's going forward. Notice in first gear, the pressure plate is not, there's no pressure on these plates, these friction plates. They are just spinning right around, which means on this side, that transmission's not engaged. Let's go into a second gear. So we can actually reach down over here a little easier. And we can, let's see here, go back down to, there we go, there's neutral. A little tough with one hand. There's first, you saw the gear move. There's second, and why the heck not? Let's just go right to third gear. Notice nothing on the plates. Turn the motor. Nothing. Nothing. That's what I'm mulling over. Alright guys, this place feels like carnage after doing much as I could one day tear down, rebuild, nuts to bolts, soup to kitchen. Alright, so we ended up doing that because after putting the computer in, it would start and run, but it wouldn't leave neutral. You could run the shifter a little bit, might shift into one gear, then was getting hung up partway through. Also, when we split the case, spent a lot of time working through, just playing with the lifter forks and the shift drum, and put the shift side of the case together, working through the shifts, watching, you know, the forks move through. It looks like it's a constant mesh transmission. And what I mean by that, if I'm using the term correctly, is everything is spinning. So when you shift, it doesn't necessarily drop right into that next gear, but as everything is moving, you know, it clicks right in. So you got to keep the hand cranking the motor as you're working through the gears. So I got it to a point where when it's in gears and when it's in a gear, any of the gears and spinning, I get the last gear in the output spinning as well, which is the gear that drives the high-low range. I never had the high-low reverse attached there because that was on the other side of the case. So ultimately, I don't know if I found anything obviously wrong. Best thing I found that might have been out of whack was the shifter shaft being able to move laterally and missing putting in gear there. But that was a long day of tearing everything down, inspecting, reading, testing, staring, thinking, drinking coffee. So what do we have left to do? I have to consider if I can get to a test point and just see the drive shaft spin, because putting the back end on is a pain on this one. But I want to be careful because if this spins, I don't want this yoke just bouncing off of everything. So maybe idle and then a quick shift in to see if it spins, and that's it. But before we do any of that, I've got to put oil in, and I'm out of good oil. And my bad oil is bad oil. So I'm not going to put that through the motor. So I got to go out, get some oil, and clean up the carnage. I've got stuff laying around everywhere today. So park it for another night. Oh boy, do I hope I figured out why that thing wasn't engaging, because otherwise it was idling really nice. All right, guys, back at it. I think this is my problem. See these plates? See that play? When the armature here, when you shift, and as I was showing, when this is all properly engaged, see if I can line this on that ball bearing, and this mechanism gets rolled, it gets pressed out when this ball bearing spins. Presses out here, presses in on the center of the secondary clutch. Pressing in should allow to disengage. And if you notice, we're completely disengaged on this secondary clutch. When we're at idle, the primary clutch here will spin at low RPM and engage at higher RPM. This should always be engaged. Pressure on these plates, unless you are pressing in here to disengage, which is when you're going through the semi-auto shift. After all that work, I think my problem is right here. So I'm going to disassemble this. Look in the back of the basket. The pressure plate should be on the back here. Take off the clutch boss, and let's take a closer look at this. Found something already here. There's an arrow on the bottom of the pressure plate. There's an error on the top of the clutch boss. Right now they don't align. Right about there should be an alignment. If I get all these guys playing nice. Right, there's the arrow, there's the arrow. See if we can get all this to fall down into place. Now they all sandwich in together. All that work, I think I had misassembled my clutch pack. So now that I have the arrow on the clutch boss lined up with the arrow on the back of my pressure plate, I expect we'll actually have clutch engagement. Yeah, now that it's lined up, once the springs are in here trying to expand, it should put, see, before I had like that, the arrows, there's one of them, they weren't lined up. Everything couldn't mesh all the way through, so those springs could not put the pressure on these clutch pads. That, I believe, was the root of all of our problems. And ultimately that means I did not need to split the motor yesterday. That's unfortunate, which also means I didn't need to take the back end off, which is, again, unfortunate, because that back end is a pain. Let's see if we can do it right this time. right, well, that was an adventure. I guess you have to ask yourself the question, why would I go ahead and completely tear down, rebuild, split the case on the motor on an ATV that I just finished rebuilding? I don't know if that's pure insanity or I just didn't want the fun to end. Yeah. So found the issue the other night with it not driving. And the kicker is I didn't have to split the case. When I was shifting the other night, it didn't feel like it was fully going into gear. What I learned was that the secondary clutch, there's a primary clutch and a secondary clutch. The secondary clutch under here, I had not put together the clutch basket and all the friction plates correctly, so it was perpetually disengaged. When you put pressure on the plate to disengage the plate, there was nothing. The plates were all loose. So because of that, there was no inertia. There was nothing spinning the transmission gears in the motor to allow that transmission to fall into gear when I was trying to shift, and essentially meant I was only partially shifting into gear. I did also find that there was some lateral movement in the shift lever. So this lever down here could shift laterally enough that the teeth that sit on the star on the other side could come off, and effectively you can get stuck shifting. I think you could probably fix that from the outside if you ever had to, just kind of wiggling and bouncing things back. I did put a washer in there, so I guess this is a modified motor now, but now there's none of that play. That's all that's left, where it was, you know, there was a tenth, if not more, maybe pushing 2/10 in there. So I have started it, I've worked it through all the gears, and I can see the rear axle spinning now. Thank goodness. So all of that work, I could have rebuilt those clutch plates, put that back together in 20 minutes. Yesterday I went hard at it for 9 hours. So I guess I'm a pro on this guy now. So what's left? I'm back to that yucky adventure again of getting the shock on, getting that pin in. Probably gonna need some help to get that all the way worked on. Once that's on, cotter pin goes on, and then my tires. And then we're doing a test drive, and then we'll put the back on. So I've got it on the trickle charger right now, but I think we're almost done. I've said that before, but I mean it this time. I really mean it this time. Holy smokes, she moved, she rolled. Oh man, she'll need some brakes. Oh, it's